one of the most important things any farmer can do is prepaying on his farm.
Well, hold on here, Brian. Now, I know winter months get long, and that's the toughest thing about farming in the upper Midwest. There's a majority of the year where we don't have a crop in the field. It's called winter, and so we've got to wait until next spring before we can plant to get things growing again. And I get really excited about the crop, but I don't get excited about paying for it just yet, Brian.
Well, I thought you were going to say you don't get excited about paperwork, and I actually do get excited about paperwork, and I'll tell you why. Because paperwork is a heck of a lot easier way to make money than back-breaking labor. I just know as a kid, we had to do hog chores, and I was scooping manure twice a day, every single day,
Brian.
7 days a week. And, yeah, it was fun and all, getting stinky and everything else.
Well, the pigs appreciated it.
I mean, if you're a hog farmer, no offense, it's great business, and I actually kind of wish that we had some hogs on our farm right now so I could teach my kids about hogs and livestock and everything else. But all I'm trying to say is it's a lot less work for me physically when I can just make some money in my office as opposed to making some money out in the hog barn. And if you're gonna run a successful farm, you gotta try to make it on both ends of the spectrum. Do a great job managing those hogs, do a great job managing the crop, but then also managing your money properly. And that's what we wanted to get into today.
All right, well, there's a lot of things, Brian, that one farmer does, and the next farmer across the fence looks at it and says, wow, why does he do that? How does he do that? And when you talk about prepaying, why do some farmers want to prepay in December versus January? And is that a really big deal?
Well, here's what it comes down to. For most farmers, they're looking at the tax advantages of prepaying, and then they're looking at when can I buy the product for the least amount of money. Okay, so with a lot of the big companies now, they've got programs starting even in September. So if you want to just get the best deal of the year, you need to pay for it as early as possible. And generally speaking, that's the way it's going to work out. And if it's seed and ag chemicals, you, for the most part, have price protection depending on the retailer you're working with. In other words, if the price goes down, you're going to get covered. Well, if the price goes down on fertilizer, you're not going to get covered. So with commodity things like fertilizer, this is not the case. But seed and chemical, you're pretty much guaranteed a good return on investment. The other thing is with that tax side of things that I'm talking about, and when Darren brings up December versus January, most farmers are on a calendar year end. So December 31 is this year, January 1st is next year for them and their fiscal business. So if they buy products in December, since most farmers are on cash accounting, they get that deduction in this year. If they pay in January, they get the deduction next year. Well, most farmers want to lower their income, their net income for this year, so they pay less tax. This isn't like they escape tax forever, they're just delaying the tax bill, but that's a big deal, delaying the tax bill, because you get to use that cash that you would pay in tax for another whole year. It's a big thing.
Well, and if you have a year where you don't make as much money too, here's something where you say, well, I didn't make very much money, so I guess it'll all kind of average out, and that's really the goal of it. But if you want to have another expense this year, you could take more income as well. You could pull some grain out of the bin or sell whatever livestock or crop that you have now, take some income now, and then have some expense to offset.
Okay, so let me just give you a specific example. It happens to farmers all over the country. They say, well, I'm going to defer my grain. Well, you can do that. You can wait to get the money from the elevator in January, but what's the elevator paying you for interest? In other words, if you can get 12% APR, let's say, or heck, even if it's 9% APR by prepaying for seed or ag chemicals in September or October, why not do that instead of letting that grain money sit just with no interest? In other words, what I'm trying to tell you is take the money from the grain elevator early and then just prepay that much more for seed or chemicals earlier.
Another question we get around prepay is, how much can I prepay?
Well, according to the IRS, and again, check with your tax accountant on this, but as I read the IRS rules, you can prepay up to half of your total expenses, and that includes depreciation, it includes rent, it includes just about every expense you've got on the farm. Half of your total expenses you can prepay.
Well, that's nice, Brian, if you have lots of cash, but what if you don't have the cash, but you still want to take advantage of these early pay discounts?
Okay, so some people are asking about financing programs. Now, I am not a tax accountant, so I would suggest that you talk to whoever deals with your taxes, your tax accountant, all right? But if you're going to use a financing program, there still is a way that you can get that deduction this year, and you'll also have a little bit of interest expense, of course, if you're borrowing the money. But you can get that deduction this year with that financing program, because basically you're getting the cash. On the other side, you're borrowing that money, whether it's from a bank or from a supplier, and then you're writing a check out for product. So in that case, you should be able to get the deduction this year for taxes.
All right, well, let's just say that I think I'm going to use the exact same program I used last year. My acres are the same. I'm going to use the same products, everything. Can I just prepay a lump sum, or do I have to lay out the whole plan and prepay for each individual little thing?
All right, if you're prepaying before the end of your fiscal year for the next fiscal year, then you are required by the IRS to prepay for specific products at specific prices and specific quantities. So everything has to be exact. Now, you can switch it later. In other words, you could return the item and switch it for another item that might still get the prepay price. That's no big deal. But when you're buying, you can't just put down $10,000 for ag chemicals. You have to put $10,000 down for 300 gallons of Roundup at this price, just for example.
Okay, well, what about that? What if I just prepay my Roundup and I don't prepay my other chemical? Do they go up about the same amount, or are there some products that are going to go up a lot more than others?
Okay, it really varies depending on the year, but I would just say as a general rule, you want to prepay for all of your ag chemicals and seed as much as possible, as early as possible. Now, the only time that this could go the other way on you is if your retailer won't honor price reductions. Most retailers will. Again, make sure you talk to your retailer so you know what's going on going into things. But in a year where commodity prices just absolutely take a nosedive, so let's say they go from $7 corn to $1.75 corn, chances are the big ag chemical companies, the seed companies, they all see this and they react. Again, with most retailers, you'll be protected on price, but make sure you know that going in, because some retailers don't honor that.
Well, getting your herbicide plan underway right now is a good idea, especially if you have our Weed of the Week. Can you identify this week's weed?